Welcome to Digital Hospitality. I am your host, Sean Walchef. This is a Cali BBQ media production. Every single week, we talk about our ongoing thesis, and that is every business needs to be digital first, and every business needs to be in the hospitality business. Now, what exactly does that mean? There is an incredible thing that's happening. If you're listening to this podcast for the first time, welcome. If you've been listening to this podcast since we started in 2017, we are grateful to have you along. We just started as Behind the Smoke podcast, and now we've evolved into digital hospitality. And digital hospitality, it's the study. We are always learning. So if you're part of this podcast, every week I talk about the thing that my grandfather taught me, which is stay curious, get involved, and ask for help. So if you're listening to this podcast, you're curious, you want to be better, you want to improve. You need to get involved. You need to do the things that the guests that we bring on, they have so much knowledge. That's why we bring them on. It is our job to find the biggest, the best, and the brightest playing the game within the game. So we talk about smartphone storytelling, branding, digital marketing, social media marketing, restaurant business, hospitality business, self-improvement, and the intersection of all of these things. So today we have a very special guest. Today's guest actually reached out to me after I presented at a restaurantowner.com. So Jim Lobb has been on this show. He's the founder of restaurantowner.com. Back in 2008, when I first opened up Cali Barbecue, I was searching the internet as somebody that was young, 26 years old, inexperienced, didn't know what I was doing, didn't know how to run a business, didn't know how to do food costing, didn't know how to do menu engineering, didn't know how to do pretty much anything. I mean, the fact that we opened a business is rather remarkable, but nonetheless, I was searching for resources and I found restaurantowner.com and I subscribed as a member. I'm still a member. I contribute every month now with Barry Schuster. They produce Restaurant Startup and Growth magazine. So anybody listening to this podcast, I highly recommend going to that resource because it's a curation of independent restaurant stories. So these are all stories of people that are successful in their markets, in their villages, doing things that are different and unique, but the themes throughout, whether it's a weekly financial statement, which, I don't know how many articles I had to read about a weekly financial statement before I finally signed on to Restaurant Accounting Services, which is our software service that we use out of Colorado. But I heard it so many times over and over that independent operators, they have weekly financials. So they have a weekly food cost, a weekly prime cost. So I finally implemented it into our system, but we've had Jim Lobb on the podcast. He did a phenomenal job and he's asked me to come on and present to independents about ghost kitchens, about our friendly ghost kitchens, also about Cali Barbecue, our Cali Barbecue media story. And I've been able to meet some incredible independent restaurant owners. And today's guest is one of those operators who not only listened to the presentation, so stay curious, but number two is he got involved. So he actually did the thing that my grandfather taught me, which was the second step. So we all know, we've all been in class, we've all had professors, we've all had coaches. They give you a great speech and gets everybody fired up. But who are the people that actually go up and talk to the coach after? Who are the ones that go and talk to the professor? Who are the ones that ask the questions? Those are always the ones that tend to be the best students. They tend to get the most out of the class. So one of the things that today's guest did is he came into my inbox. He literally slid into my DMs on Facebook and said, "Hey, I heard your presentation on Restaurant Owner. My name is Drew Glick. I own a single unit restaurant in San Antonio, high volume single unit restaurant called Max and Louie's Diner. Here's our YouTube clip of all the content that we produce. I appreciate what you did." And we started a conversation. I literally went from there to sending him a Calendly link so that we could get on a Zoom call together. And the more that I talked to him, the more I realized that a rising tide lifts all ships. So it's not about me being the expert. There's so many people in our ecosystem that listen to this podcast that I learn from you. When I meet with you, the listener, the people that are listening to this podcast, and I have conversations with you, I'm learning. So I'm grateful for this opportunity to bring Drew on. He's got a wealth of knowledge. And Drew, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks very much, Sean. It's really a pleasure an honor to be invited on. It's pretty cool. Well, just a quick shout out for Restaurant Owner. I decided to go back into the food service business about 10 years ago, and I was just surfing online trying to figure out how to do anything in the business. And the first thing I did was plop down my 10 or 12 or whatever it was a month and joined restaurantowner.com. And never look back. I think every doc I use in the restaurant probably started out as a restaurantowner.com download. So thanks to the guys over at restaurantowner.com, it's been a big help in my business.
Absolutely. Joe Erickson, Jim Law, Barry Schuster. I mean, anybody, if you own an independent restaurant or you're in the catering business, if you're in the food business, I highly recommend going to their website and checking out the free content they have. And hopefully that compels you to pay for the content, because their hook point to me was a good restaurateur is always learning. And that had me, it's, the Jerry Maguire line, you had me at hello. We always need to keep learning, which is why we do this podcast, which is why we bring people on. But Drew, I'd love for you to give us your 2-minute drill. Give us an idea of who you are and what you do for our listeners, so they can learn your story.
Well, I'll see if I can. So this is Max.
So for those of you on listening on audio, we highly suggest you subscribe on YouTube. So Cali Barbecue Media on YouTube, so that you can get the full digital hospitality experience. But if you're just listening, he has a Zoom background with the Max and Louie's logo, which he asked me if it was an okay background, and I said we believe ABB, which is always be branding. So yes, please.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
So Max, if you, for audio or video, Max was my great uncle. Louie was my grandfather. The logo is actually a picture I took off the wall in my uncle's home and gave it to an artist, 10 years ago, and said, hey, can you make this into something? And it's turned into a lot more than something over the last, especially the last 5 years, since we opened up Max and Louie's here.
So wait, 10 years ago, you asked for the logo.
So I actually had another restaurant for about 3 years, and it was originally going to be called Max and Louie's, and it's a longer than this podcast story. But we found a location. It was magnificent and bad at the same time. It was the building was great, so I changed the concept. We changed the name. It actually became Drew's American Grill. I became kind of another restaurant, like everybody, sort of, the grill, the steaks and the this and the that's, and wasn't really unique enough. I worked very, very hard. We built a nice reputation, but we just could not make it work properly. So it was a difficult 3 years, and then from there I went into the oil field fracking catering business. My family was my father was a caterer my whole life, so that's why I grew up in the catering business. If you need me to cater a party for you for 300 people in 2 days, I'll figure that I'll make happen pretty easily. Sure. The restaurant business was a little bit more of a new challenge for me.
Can you explain the difference? Because I talk about it frequently, the difference between catering, a restaurant business, and then the most difficult business, which I believe is vending. So can you give our listeners an idea of,
I think, the economics difference? An easy description is predictability and unpredictability. I mean, catering, it's obviously you have to be successful and have people booking parties, but once you're booking parties, once the parties are booked, you know how many people, how many pieces of meat and how many glasses and all the things that you need, and how much staff you need. In the catering business, I mean, I staff up on we send out our hot schedule on for next week, not knowing how many people are going to show up
for the restaurant business.
The restaurant.
Yeah, correct.
In the restaurant business, right? So I mean, it's unpredictable until you kind of become, we're going into our 5th year now, so it's becoming more and more predictable. It's not totally obviously weather and all kinds of holidays and all kinds of things can affect your predictability after a bunch of years in the restaurant business. But there's some great aspects to catering, and we do a lot of catering. Now obviously last year we didn't do a lot of anything other than work hard and survive, but sure. Catering is a big part of our business. We have a private room in our restaurant, so we're caterers in a restaurant, as opposed to I was strictly a caterer growing up. And when I closed the first restaurant, we pivoted right away to catering on fracking sites in the oil fields in South Texas. And I was feeding 200. I bought a trailer. And
how many fracking sites are in South Texas?
More than you can count. I mean, how many are operating right now? I mean, not that many, because you know, but it's starting. Someone actually approached me the other day about the idea that they were going to possibly be ready to start doing some catering again, which is another interesting revenue stream that I'm hoping that will happen. But
sure,
we were feeding about 200 men a day, 7 days a week.
Wow.
For 2 years.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I have a trailer and I still have the trailer with a full kitchen in it. That,
I mean, any restaurant that gets 200 customers a day through their doors is a happy restaurant. Yeah. So,
and that was totally predictable. You know,
correct.
I knew how many people they signed on for. I made a menu, you know, in most cases 2 weeks in advance, so I knew what I wanted to serve. They would tell me sometimes they wanted to adjust they had someone coming down to look at the site, so they wanted something fancier. So we were doing as simple as meatloaf to grilling steaks and baked potatoes, and we did salads and fresh bread. And I mean, and this is in the middle of a ranch with hogs and tarantulas. And
how far was the delivery?
Anywhere from an hour to 2.5 hours in each direction.
Wow.
So we would park the trailer on the site for typically 2 weeks at a time, because that's how long they would be doing, you know, what they would do on a particular site. And we would be hooked up to a generator. Mm-hmm. And then I would milk truck back and forth the staff and the food every day. And my wife and I would go probably 2 days out of the week, just the two of us. And a lot of times we would stay over, and I would do enough so I could do two days without having to go back and forth. But my guys, yeah. I was shipping back and forth every day with the food. It was wow. It was incredibly interesting and profitable, you know, for the time that it went on.
That's interesting. That's very so when did you make the switch? You went from catering to Drew's Grill?
Yeah, my father was in the catering business. I left when I had my kids, you know, who are 27. I have twins that are 27 now. When I had my kids, I decided to get out of the business altogether, and I went into the insurance and investment business for 17 years on Park Avenue, right near where your background, you know, literally right in your background. That's where I worked.
There you go.
And then
the hospitality business was calling you.
It was, you know, it's something that I've always, this particular thing that I do now it was in the database my entire life. And
this concept,
and I just, this concept, you know, relatively.
So this concept, so the New York diner, not in New York though, but the New York diner somewhere else.
Well, the idea was originally to do it in New York, but I mean, my father and I were contemplating doing this in the late 80s, and the rent was $100,000 a month.
Seriously?
In the late 80s. You know, it's a lot of sandwiches to sell to, you know.
That's a lot of sandwiches to sell.
Yeah. So I had an uncle that I was very close with who was a surgeon in San Antonio for over 50 years. And he literally called me up one day and said, "Why don't you move here and we'll open up that deli that you always wanted to do?" And it sort of evolved into, well, that one that didn't work. And then we pivoted after the oil field thing dried up. I got another.
Well, going from a deli to a diner is a huge leap.
What was that?
Going from a deli to a diner is a huge leap.
It's, you know, and so it's sort of that New York Jewish delicatessen flavor, you know.
Yep.
So when the Jewish people in San Antonio, they still call it the deli.
Oh, really?
It has a lot of deli, you know, I mean, pastrami and corned beef, and you know, we bake 1,000 loaves of challah bread for
1,000 loaves.
What's that?
1,000 loaves?
Yeah, 1,000 loaves a week just in challah bread. We bake all our own bread now, other than our sliced white and and wheat bread. But we bake our rye and our brioche buns and our hoagie rolls. And
For those that are listening that aren't in the restaurant business, to have your in-house bakery, I mean, that is a serious operation.
Yeah, when we opened up 4.5 years ago, Max and Louie's, it was about, they're 4,500 square feet. I didn't take the space next door that was originally part of the original Mexican restaurant that this place was, and it was a total disaster. The whole facility was you had to have vision to take this space over. But it's in the parking lot of a 14-plex movie theater that was, at the same time I took the space, was doing a $12 million renovation.
Wow.
And making it into this it's a spectacular movie theater, literally in my parking lot. So
wow.
But was only half the size. I only had 100 seats when I opened.
Mm-hmm.
And within a very, very short period of time, we had 1.5 2-hour waits, and
Wow. What are the hours of operation?
7 a.m. to roughly 10 p.m., 7 days a week.
Sounds like the hours that we started with.
Not 24/7, just like
no, 24/7. It might as well be from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. It might as well be 24/7. That's a lot of operating hours.
When we close, though, I have a full-time maintenance guy that's been with me for years and years and years, almost to 10 years since the other restaurant. And he comes in when we close, and he works all night and cleans the restaurant and PMs all my equipment and he's a mechanic. I haven't called someone for service in years.
Wow.
He services everything.
That's amazing.
So that's
how did you find him?
Lesson. What's that?
How did you find him?
I actually inherited him when I took over the building at the first restaurant. He had been working there at the previous restaurant, and we just kind of clicked right away. And he's just been, he's part of the family,
Every restaurant needs the village technician, for sure.
Yeah, most don't have it. I mean, it's a very unique thing, and it's it's an expensive thought. The thought of it is expensive. The actual reality of it is it's I'll almost use the term, it's priceless, because it's again, it's to have somebody available all the time to fix something. And our things don't break down as much because he's doing all the preventative maintenance all the time. So, and then he cleans the restaurant every night, 5.5 nights. So, and then I have some other else that comes and just cleans the other day. So we're, it's a very interesting operation that we run, and but it's every day is a challenge.
So I'd love for you to share with the listeners what from my presentation on ghost kitchens was compelling to you.
Well, I have I'm a grandiose thinker, I guess is the word. And
anybody listening to this podcast is grandiose thinkers. Exactly. We have a kinship.
Absolutely. That was the first thing. I just, you intrigued me, and I felt that kinship just over the media. But this concept was almost an instant success from the day we opened.
When did you know it was a success? Do you remember?
Well, I did my business plan before we opened, and I'll say my partners I did it at, at 40,000 a week. I don't know if we want to say numbers.
Sure. Absolutely.
Too many numbers, whatever it is.
I mean, we share everything we can.
I did my thing based on doing $40,000 a week.
Your break-even point was 40,000 a week.
Yeah. Or even to make a few bucks, was $40,000.
Okay, perfect.
And all that, and they thought I was out of my mind.
That there's no way you're going to do that volume.
That's totally too much. You'll never do it. Just as a side note, my previous restaurant, our best days that we ever had, and there were probably 5 or 6 in the 3 years, we broke 50. the best in this other place, and the rent was $30,000 a month in the other one.
30,000 a month.
Yeah, that's what. Again, it was
Oh
just
my God.
we made some big novice mistakes. We'll just leave
Wow.
But we opened up this
wow.
restaurant doing those numbers.
Yeah.
So so it was kind of almost an instant success. I mean, it was an instant challenge
Sure.
because it was successful. I mean, I had staff that didn't care and were disruptive and mean, and we had turnover like it was crazy.
How many employees are we talking about when you first started?
When I first started, probably 40, 50 maybe. When March of last year, I guess the 13th at 15th, I forgot the exact date, we had 85 employees.
Wow.
When we
for those of you that are listening, understanding how many for a single unit restaurant to have over 40 employees is significant volume. To have 85 employees, like, you're crushing it. You're absolutely crushing it.
So we unfortunately we furloughed 75 of those 85.
Wow.
When that was one of the saddest days of my wife and I's life. I mean, we literally were crying. We offered help to and this is before we knew what help meant and what we were going to have available and if we were going to be able to do business and all that. I got out tents that I, those pop-up 10 by 10s or that I had used, for tailgates with my kids at University of Texas, and popped those up in the parking lot and just started doing takeout from the parking lot of the restaurant, and had 10 people, about 5 in the back and 5 in the front, and it was kind of crazy. But just getting back to the original thing, so we started out with 4.5 years ago with half the size place, half the size crew, not knowing. I mean, I did all the recipes, but I'm trying to teach dysfunctional staff members at the time who thought they were chefs that were barely cooks, how to make Jewish food and how to make Italian food and this whole 8-page crazy menu that we developed.
8 pages.
Yeah, it's nuts. I mean,
it's nuts.
It's nuts. And it's funny because like 6 weeks ago, and again, there's a lot of messages in this podcast, I guess, but about 8 weeks ago, I reintroduced our menu. So when we closed down and then when we were reopening the dining room, I took that 8 pages and made it into 2. So beautiful. I cut out a lot of stuff. I took like the top of the P mix, the most important things, and made it into a 2-page. And not just because to make it easier for the kitchen, but I wanted something that people could go on and just see really quick, because it was, that I can print on a 2-page piece of throwaway paper. Yes. Right. And then about 8 weeks ago, I was working on it for about 3-4 months, and I reintroduced our full menu on steroids. I added an entire Italian section. I added an entire, including pizzas and calzones and strombolis and lasagna. I mean, an entire Italian section. We started off doing two items at a time, saw how it worked. It didn't work. We tweaked it. We got rid of it, all those things. I added, wings and all this stuff to our appetizers. Just a lot of, took the staff's ideas that they've been telling me but it's hard to make a big change, but this was the opportunity to make the big change. And I also raised prices because things were getting a little weird with paper goods. I mean, our paper good costs went from a 1.5% to 4 or 5%, which is right. I mean, nitrile gloves before COVID were $40 a case for 1,000. At one point I was paying $200 a case. Yeah. I'm getting a great deal right now at $130 a case. Right. I mean, it's crazy, Yeah. So all these costs, and this is before the last 5-6 weeks where meat and poultry and chicken. All that stuff is all skyrocketed, and availabilities are bad. So I actually put out this new menu. I went back 2 weeks ago, took it, redid it again. I took off things. I went through the P-mix every day. I did my
Yep.
P-mix, so what's selling, what's not selling, and then pulled off things that weren't. I pulled the wings right off. They weren't selling. Like, I'm not a wing place, so it wasn't like I had to have them.
Yep.
And wings are up, 200% or whatever
Yep.
it was. So I'll let the wing guys have the wings and figure out how to make livings. And so I raised a few prices again, actually, even 8 weeks later. And I have a friend who has a family that has 4 giant, 500-seat restaurants, Mexican restaurants here in San Antonio. It's a household name in San Antonio. And for some reason they asked me my opinions. They've been in business for 40 years, and I'm, and they were so scared to raise prices.
It's a terrifying thing for restaurant operators.
It's a terrifying thing,
Yeah.
Mom wouldn't let us do it. Mom would never want us to do this or whatever it is. And I said to them, you have to raise your prices. Everyone around you is going to. And I said, I guarantee you're not going to lose any customers.
Correct.
And what's going to happen is in 6 months or 8 months, when hopefully things are back to whatever normal is, well, now you'll be in better shape because your prices will be higher and your costs will be less, and people will be thrilled that you're still here and providing them with a great thing. And we're allowed to make livings,
Yes. It's not a nonprofit that we're running.
Exactly.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about your own personal journey as being a restaurant owner? I know one of the things that I like to talk about is reaching out and asking for help. I mean, it's, as a restaurant owner, an entrepreneur, small business owner, we like to think that we can find the answer ourselves always. But so much of the time is when I've gone outside of my restaurant, and sometimes it's not even another restaurant owner that I'm asking for help or advice from, but it's somebody else that's a business owner, somebody else that's an entrepreneur. I mean, I've recently hired in the last 2 years a media coach, David Meltzer, who's been on the podcast, who I repurpose my coaching calls. But it's investing in my own personal development, my own personal growth, so that I can grow. How have you approached that?
I mean, it's sort of like, first in, first out almost, with your refrigerator, I mean, I give as much as I ask for, I mean, and I don't do anything expecting anything in return. Now, if you're dealing with the right people and you're consistently a good giver, you typically, will get something, when you need it, so I have some very strategic friends in San Antonio that I've, met since the first day, or in the last, year. So the journey's been crazy. I mean, it's been crazy I came to San Antonio 10 years and, I went into a business I really didn't know much about. I mean, I grew up in the catering business, not in the restaurant business. And we took over a 10,000 square foot, crazy, restaurant.
$30,000 rent. I mean,
that's 30,000 rent. That was beautiful, but set up poorly. So, the steps of service were just, you couldn't cut your staff, enough to make a living, because this was over there and that was over there, and it just, you couldn't do it. So it was, and so the lessons that were learned. But I was, I met people that, I'll say saved my, business life and throughout that time. And then when they're, struggling or needed some help, or just, hey, who's your exterminator, who's your plumber, who's your electrician, all those things. If you have a couple of strategic alliances or friendships with some great people, then they call you. Again, these people that own these 4 giant restaurants, I mean, they call me as much as I call them. And, how would they need my help? I mean, I'm a 1 unit, been in business for 5 years. What do I know? but I guess I know enough that they feel comfortable when they need
For
something
sure.
that we share each other, we share it. And I'm an open book. I mean, I don't, what's the point of hiding and trying to, keep things to yourself? I mean, that's not my thing, so sometimes maybe even to a fault, but
Yeah.
I give, you ask me a question, you're going to get an answer in most cases.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that philosophy? Because I mean, obviously we wouldn't be putting on a podcast or sharing our business plan or, producing media content and telling everybody what our plan is for opening up ghost kitchens and building a master smokehouse if we lived, because I don't want to live in scarcity. I don't want to live in a world where I'm competing against the barbecue guy down the street. We've always believed a rising tide lifts all ships, which is why we promote the guy down the street, because we know that his barbecue it's nothing close to our barbecue. Yes, it's in the same category, but Coop's West Texas barbecue is completely different than the barbecue you're going to get from us. It's completely different from Derek Marceau's barbecue down at Valley Farm Market, because it's unique. So that's always been my philosophy. And now on this podcast, I get to talk to other tech CEOs that they run an open sourced, philosophy. Jordan Bosch, the founder of Seven Chefs, is telling me literally that's the culture that they have. And by doing that, they're actually making a better product, not just for themselves, but they're learning from other CEOs. Where did you start? Where did you learn your philosophy?
Well, again, I'm 56 years old.
You're young.
Still have some hair.
You're young. Yeah. I told you that on our first calls. You try to tell me you're old, but Ray Kroc started at 53. So I don't want to hear that 56 is old. Ray Kroc probably only had 2 restaurants by 56.
I was only saying that because I'm 56 and got started, later in this, but I have 56 years of being in business and developing relationships and just asking questions and all that. So philosophies, I mean, my uncle's, unfortunately, my uncle, who was my partner in Max and Louie's, Max was his father, Louie was my grandfather. His favorite philosophy or term was, I mean, don't invent it, copy it and adjust it, or something like that.
That's essentially what everyone does anyways. I mean, nobody's reinvented. Right. So, I mean, even everything, especially in the restaurant business and hospitality business, but now especially with digital.
So you asked me, I mean, earlier, and I get sidetracked, but so I felt, Max and Louie's, I had this idea that it can work in every city. Right. And I think and every is a big word, but, in many cities will say similar to, San Antonio. Every day someone comes in from St. Louis or from Cleveland or from Austin or whatever it is, and they say, oh, when are you opening? And and my head gets spinning and okay, we got to open up stores and do all that. And then, COVID hits and, and then, things change, your thought patterns change. This whole, I mean, the virtual ghost cloud, whatever you want to call it, kitchen thing. I mean, it was being done, but not really, no one really knew about it, like it is, now. And so I'm listening to you on Restaurant Owner that day, and you're, talking about all this stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I mean, I have Max and Louie's concept, and I have about 6 or 7 other concepts that I could launch literally tomorrow, and now I'm like, hey, maybe I can do Max and Louie's in all those places that I talked about without having a $1.5 million, $2 million build and 60, 70 employees and all the risk and all those things that go along with it. When you and I talked, and I, typically don't joke about business that much. I mean,
we have to joke a little bit.
No. I mean, again, there's a lot of jokes. Yeah. But, when I said to you, maybe I'll come to San Diego and you have Cali on one side and Max and Louie's on the other, and we have a shared space in the middle where people can take their stuff and go and sit, a nice, common, cool, area. The what do you call it? The communal patio, where it's digital. Everybody, all the delivery services are taking the stuff, but if people want to come to the door and pick it up and sit and eat, correct. What's wrong with that? And what does that cost? A lot less. No matter what it costs, it's a lot less.
It's a lot less. Yeah. And that's what's exciting for me, is the more that I have these conversations and I meet other people that are doing incredible things in other markets, it's, you know, we're all sharing these ideas on all these different platforms, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on their website. Like, there's access to information that we've never had before, where if I hear, like, I've just been leaning into Clubhouse. It's an app. If you're not on Clubhouse, please, if you're listening to this podcast, please get on Clubhouse. Please, if you need an invite, Sean P. Walchef, I will get you an invite. We'll figure out a way to get you in. But we're going to start hosting our weekly digital hospitality leadership call. So Stover, my producer, Toby, who we brought in to help us with digital strategy for the podcast, Kyle, who does our website, Aaron, who runs the media side of our production. We have a weekly Zoom call, but now I'm going to host it on Clubhouse, and I'm going to host it as open sourced. Literally anybody that listens to this podcast, like, it's an interactive way for us to have a conversation every week that, hey, you heard an idea about ghost kitchens, or, you know, you had Drew on and he was talking about, you know, all these different markets and how he grew from, you know, half of a restaurant to a full restaurant and what he would have done differently. It's this interactive space where all of us can share these ideas. You know, restaurantowner.com, the webinar, you and I, this is the world that we live in, and it's a matter of what are we going to do with it? You know, how are we going to use that information to actually make an impact for our business, or actually do something that is inspirational for our community, for our village? And, you know, we joke about it, but I don't think it's a joke at all. I mean, I agree with you, and we wouldn't be, you know, where we are now if there wasn't a possibility of it. But we don't know what that's going to be. You know, and just by having the conversation, you and I can start to talk about technology. I talk all the time about Toast. It's our point of sale technology. We switched from Aloha to Toast. We made a Toast unboxing video. It's one of the key pieces of pillar content that I talk about when I talk to any other business owner about why making social media content about your business partners makes sense. Because yes, it's not for the customer. Obviously, I don't have any customers coming into my restaurant to buy Toast point of sale equipment, but the amount of people and the amount of engagement that we got as a business from other restaurant owners who are literally making that same decision makes it worthwhile, because that's a way for us to give back to the industry. It's a way for us to be a part of the conversation.
My supplier, which I use Benny Keith almost exclusively, they're not in California. They're a giant, like Cisco, like, you know, US Foods. They're a giant company, but they're kind of mid country,
Yep.
you know, and I wouldn't be in business without them during COVID. They, you know, saved my life, literally. I've done videos for them, with them. I did some fun kind of things, you know, with what do you call it? Boomerang. I did some, is that
boomerangs? Yep.
Boomerangs getting in and out of their trucks and stuff.
Yes.
I mean, all kinds of things. And they don't, I'm one customer. I'm a good customer because I do a lot of business and I pay my bills better than most.
Yes.
But I'm one unit. I mean, they can, their Sonic is, they sell every Sonic,
sure.
I mean, it's but they'd rather, they're happy to take care of me because I'm good, we're good to each other, and what you're doing, this is, a Cali a Sean Cali BBQ plug or whatever it is. I mean, what you're doing, what's the downside, right? There's no downside to what you're, it's all upside, I mean, is someone going to steal an idea that you have? I mean, is someone going to steal the fact that
great.
I use a brioche bun and leaf lettuce
Sure.
versus,
great.
I mean, come on. So, so it's, to me, this, again, I'm excited that you invited me on. I'm learning. I mean, I don't even know what Clubhouse is. I'm going to go as soon as I get off.
Oh, you're on Clubhouse. I'm recruiting. I'm recruiting anybody that's listening to this podcast onto Clubhouse, because that way it's not just a one-way conversation between me and the guest. Literally, I can bring you on stage on the rooms that we moderate, and we can learn more about you and your business. And if you have a question about, smartphone storytelling, which is literally what we do, whatever the question is, whether it's about LinkedIn, whether it's about Twitter, whether it's about Instagram, whether it's about ghost kitchens, no matter what that is, like we can create a conversation around that topic. And the cool thing about Clubhouse is that you put in your profile who you are. So it forces you to improve your profile, which helps you improve your LinkedIn profile. But then you also have your Instagram profile and your Twitter profile, which makes sure that you have both of those up to date. So now you're getting more Instagram followers, you're getting more Twitter followers, but more importantly, you're building a community of like-minded people. You just don't know who
I'm
is
excited
going to be listening to the podcast.
I'm excited to experience it. I'm a little lame on a lot of the social things. I'm trying to get better and better at it. The one thing which you've seen my videos, I don't know why I do them, but it's fun. And a matter of fact, today my latest video, dropped on YouTube.
It's amazing. So you have to go and see the work that Max and Louie TV on YouTube. But I have to applaud you because I'm lucky and I'm fortunate to have the opportunity to speak to so many small business owners, mid-sized business owners, tech companies, but restaurants specifically, and talk to them about social media marketing. And so many people are unwilling to do what you do. They're unwilling to get out of the ego, to the fear of the camera. And I understand that fear. I understand why restaurant owners, why anybody has a fear of talking to the camera. It's the same reason I had a fear of talking on local radio when I first got an opportunity to go and talk on local radios. I was scared that I was going to say something that sounded stupid.
Well,
especially for me.
You have a voice. I'm just kidding.
I appreciate that. But even going on local news, for the first times we went on local news, I was terrified. I was terrified that the anchor was going to come, the NBC anchor, the Fox 5 anchor. They were going to come out to the back lot. We were going to be cooking barbecue, and they're going to ask me a technical question about the craft of barbecue, real barbecue. And I wasn't going to know the answer. And ultimately, I, of course, got over my own fear because nobody was going to tell the Cali barbecue media story better than I was.
Sure.
And that's the thing that I love about your videos is that you understand that it's just a camera. You're already doing that work when you're in your diner. When you're in your diner, you're you. Literally now you're just producing media content to help sell the story of the work that you're doing. When did you get the inspiration to produce your first video?
Well, actually, Gary, you and I've talked about it. I mean,
Sure.
Gary Vaynerchuk,
Love him.
Yep. Probably 15 years ago. I was actually in his office where he did his show.
Amazing.
It was probably episode 150 and
Wine Library TV.
Wine Library TV.
There
and
you
that
go.
I kind of always wanted to do something like that. I spent $2,000 and bought all this equipment, and it sat in my office because I couldn't figure out how to actually make it happen. So about a year or so ago, she's a friend now, but she's my publicist, Julia, and she brought in the videographer. We discuss in advance. We usually film 3 to 4. We've kind of narrowed it down to 3 because 4 is too much. We usually film 3 episodes in a day. They go off once a month, the second Thursday of every month.
Yep.
And we write the scripts and rehearse them, and I bring in guests sometimes, and I've always done since the beginning. For some reason, I've always been on the local news channels.
Do you remember the first time you went on local news?
Oh yeah, Shelley Miles on San Antonio Living, it was called, and
were you nervous?
Yeah, it's funny. I've always been okay with this type of thing. Of course, once you're about to go on and you have that pre-jitters of what are they going to ask you and you're going to have the answers, or are you going to screw, because I always cooked on the shows. So
Sure.
you're answering questions, so you're thinking about that, you're trying to make the food look good, but they would always have me back because I always overdid it. The displays. I mean, I brought on ice carvings and all this stuff. I always, I wanted it to be a spectacle. And, if you spend $200 instead of nothing or whatever it is, and you make it into something great. I remember I did this once, and I actually had a big Drew's, it was called Drew's American Grill. I did a big Drew's ice carving done with lights in the back of it and all this stuff for a 4-minute segment, you know?
I want the list.
The guy who came on after me was from one of the big wing companies.
Yes.
And he literally had 5 plastic bowls of different flavored wings. And, you know, I get off. It's like saying that's a tough act to follow. I get off and it's like this whole thing. And then he's like, yeah, these are barbecue and these are spicy and these are, whatever, you know what I'm saying?
True.
So it's, you know, so they asked me back over and over and over again. And that's how I got started. And then I wanted to do this video thing, but it was more of a production than I really thought. And then with Julia and whatever it is, we did the first few, and then we got, you know, getting better and better at it. And I think they're really cool. And I need your help to figure out how to get more subscribers. Cause I mean, I have like hardly any subscribers. I don't do a good job of promoting it. So I got to do a better job with that.
Well, the number one thing, I mean, it's a Gary Vee thing, is you need to produce more, you know, and you need to make it easier on yourself, because we call that pillar content. So I use Rising Tides Creative. We've had Aaron on the show. He does phenomenal work. You have Brandon's our cameraman, and they bring lights. And, you know, we just did a video yesterday, a collaboration with Sam, the cooking guy, who has 3 million YouTube subscribers. He's become a close friend. He's been on the podcast more than any other guest. He has, you know, 4 different restaurants. But so I used him for that episode, which is kind of a behind the scenes episode of working with a YouTube influencer. But ultimately, every single day, I'm using my smartphone to produce more content for the internet.
Which was Gary, you know, and you know, obviously before it was I forgot what it was called. It was like a little video camera thing that we used.
Yep. But now everyone has you have the media machine in your pocket. We all have it in our pocket, and we just need to develop the habit of knowing, like, I can literally just make a 30-second video right now in the middle of the diner to talk about whatever the new special or whatever that is, and you just post it.
It's interesting because I was visiting my son and my daughter-in-law in Memphis, and I got home late last night, and on the plane I was making notes of, I have like a to-do list that's like 6 pages, and I keep putting it in, whatever it is. And the thing that I want to do, you know, I've been wanting to put together a newsletter, like a newspaper kind of newsletter, but that's, again, a production, and who does paper anymore? So then I'm like, you know what? Why don't I do a video newsletter once a week at least? So I do the video newsletter 3 times a month, and then once a month I drop the big video. And now all of a sudden it's a weekly thing that people, and every time I do the weekly, it's getting people ready for the monthly. So
that's 1000% correct.
So that's kind of where I want to go. I just have to, it's
removing the friction. I mean, I listen to Tim Ferriss, who's one of my favorite, obviously, 4-Hour Work Week and Tools of Titans, so many things, one of the best podcasts there is. But actually Toby, our one of our digital strategists that we just brought on, from Mountain Roads Creative, he turned me on to an episode that Tim Ferriss did with Greg McKeown. And Greg McKeown is an author, and he just came out with a book called Effortless. And I'm just fascinated by this question of what would this look like if it were effortless. So we all, especially when we come to media and content creation, we all have an idea of what that newspaper is going to look like, or what that magazine is going to look like, or what that YouTube video needs to look like. And it all comes with all the barriers for entry that we think about when we think about, how do I produce a radio show? Well, if I'm producing a radio show, that's hard. But if I'm producing a podcast, I can download the Anchor app and produce a podcast. Like, if I'm start to think and I remove all of those barriers of making it effortless, how do I make it effortless? I make it effortless with this smartphone in my pocket.
Right.
Like, I make it effortless by doing the 4 P's that we talk about: plan, produce, publish, promote. Those are the 4 P's. And then you just repeat that, but you use the content that's here, that's in real life. We're already doing hospitality in real life. So how do we transfer that to the smartphone and then get our message out on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Clubhouse, on LinkedIn? You know, it's like all of those strategies come, but you got to start somewhere. You know, otherwise, if you don't start somewhere, then you have 6 pages of like, I want to do this. I desire to do this. What I love, I hope the I hope whoever's listening to this podcast, I hope you heard what Drew said, because it is literally one of the pillar pieces of truth that helped us get so much press, so many radio appearances, so many local news appearances. It's helping us get coverage nationally now. It's treat your media opportunity, no matter how small it is, treat it as a spectacle. Literally, he treated it as a spectacle. The amount of investment that he made compared to everybody else, national brands. It's literally when we went to the radio studio and we went to the #1 rated Rock 105.3 morning show and we would bring food for them. They say, bring food for 6 people. We never brought food for 6 people. We brought food for 50 people. We brought food for 100 people. We fed because it's Clear Channel and iHeartRadio. Guess what? They have 10 different morning shows, country music, hip hop music, rock and roll, talk radio. We brought food for all of them. And guess who they wanted to bring back? It was us. When we went to the news station, we were feeding the camera crew. We were feeding security. We were feeding the guys in lights. We were feeding the anchors. We were feeding the afternoon crew, the people that were coming off. We made a huge spectacle. We were tailgating in the lot, like as if it was our Super Bowl. We made every news appearance our Super Bowl. And then comparatively to everybody else, who do you think made a better impression?
Obviously. We a couple of years ago, there was the lunar eclipse, or I don't know, there was some eclipse going on. So I make black and white, the classic Deli, New York black and white cookies, Seinfeld, whatever it was. So I made them with where I did it. It was like all chocolate and then a little side, moon, crescent of white, so it looked like the eclipse. And I made a whole bunch of them and I delivered them to the news station that I did most of that. That gave me the most play. I gave them. And that night on the thing, she was holding up next to the actual eclipse.
Plugging your business.
Max and Louie's eclipse.
Yes. Yes. Plugging your business.
Yeah. Just little stupid things turn into big things.
Well, it's not stupid things because it's thoughtful things.
Right.
Like those thoughtful things, the reason why we care about hospitality is we care about humans. We care about making a memorable moment. And you can make a memorable moment and you can have a thoughtful moment. But the point of what we do with digital hospitality in this podcast, anybody listening, is like, we want you to capture that moment. It's never been easier to capture moments with your iPhone or your Android. Literally, life is happening in front of us, our business life, and we need to get out of our own way and remove the ego and stop going, I'm worried about what am I going to look like, or what am I going to sound like, or what's somebody going to think of me if I post, something about my business in my personal Facebook feed. Well, guess what? If they're following you and they're allegedly your quote unquote friend on Facebook,
they don't care what you sound like. They're happy to see you.
They better be happy to see you. And if they're unhappy to see you, then they should unfollow you and they should fuck off. Exactly. And they're not your friend. If they have a problem, if any one of my friends on Facebook has a problem with me posting content about Cali barbecue, fuck them.
Exactly.
Fuck them. That feeds my family. That helps my family fly to Bulgaria. So we need to get over that and just be who you are. Be who you are, but you need to develop the habit. It's a daily habit of understanding you are your own media machine.
So how did you get out of your, I don't know how much time we have left, but how did you get out of your comfort zone? I mean, because it is, I mean, you have to break the ice, it's not, and it's hard. It's easy, but it's hard. I mean, once you do it, you'll say, holy crap, I can't believe I waited so long to do this, but you got to just do it somehow. And how did you do it?
I appreciate the question. I had to do it out of necessity. We would have failed as a restaurant. We would have failed. I had to do anything and everything to give anyone to give a shit about our restaurant in a tough part of San Diego. So, 2008, 2009, 2010, not being able to pay payroll, not being able to pay US Foods, not being able to pay our suppliers, understanding how much time and money we had spent and our hopes and dreams to put into this business, and no one gave a shit.
How'd you know you were the right person?
That I was the right person to tell the story.
How'd you do it? I mean, were you, did you? I mean, it could have been your partner, your brother, I mean, I don't know. I mean, or was there just nobody else and you had to do it?
I mean, it's a great question, because that's what I think about now when I tell other friends that I have, very successful friends that are attorneys, that are in insurance business, and I tell them the same stuff that everyone hears on this podcast every single week. It's in those businesses, they need to start telling stories. Like if you own an insurance company and you're sending a stock email with, fake people and some stock bullshit article about why I should buy life insurance, that's not compelling to me. I've bought in life insurance through you. You're my insurance agent. I want you to write the fucking article. You tell me a real story. You put your face in there. You tell me a real story about somebody that's, unfortunately lost their husband or they lost their wife and how the impact that made on their family because they had life insurance. Like this shit is like, the answer is always so easy. It's us. It's you. It's me. I had to understand it was me. Like yes, I want everyone to be telling our story, right? But if I'm not willing to tell our story, if I don't improve on telling our story, how the fuck is anyone else going to know who we are, what we do?
Yeah, I tell everybody to read Danny Meyer's book, Setting the Table. And the majority of the people that I either give, I always have a stack of them, and I always give them away, and the majority of the people I give it to aren't in our business.
Yeah.
They're in, what's the difference if you're selling whatever you're selling, you still need to provide a level of hospitality that exceeds people's expectations, right? I mean, you want people, your life insurance salesman, there's a million, or you just go online and just buy a policy online and not deal with anybody. But when your spouse dies, who's coming, is the internet that you bought it from going to come and hold your hand and get you through that, so all this hospitality, the exceeding, making people feel good, that's what it's all about. I live and breathe that every single day. All this tech stuff, I like it, and I'm doing more and more, but I'm still not at your, where you are, but I'm dying to be. So I'm trying to do it.
Well, I'll tell you one of the things that Adam Harris, who's been on this podcast, he's the CEO and founder of Cloudbeds. It's one of the fastest growing technology companies in the hotel space. He's basically building the toast for hotels. And I mean, he's got employees in 20 different countries. And I mean, it's absolutely amazing that I grew up with this guy and this is what he's doing. But before he started Cloudbeds, he owned a company called Cali, and they did websites, for the San Diego Restaurant Association. So all the big restaurant groups use them. I was using somebody else before, and I went to him and I asked him, I'm having trouble with the website. I've got, somebody that's running our website. I have to email him to make any updates because we want to put on a fight night, and I need to promote the fight night, and I want him to put, the event here, and this is the text I want, this is the photo I want, and I'd send it, and it would take 2 days, and then he would update it, and then it would go live on the site, and I'd look at it. I was like, well, no, that's not the right information. So I'd email him back. So I'm losing all this search. Yeah, I'm losing all this search engine optimization time for people that can find discovery, go, hey, where am I going to watch the fight in San Diego? I need that to happen. So what Adam told me, and it's something that I take to all social media platforms, all technology, is all these technologies, it's so fast. It's insane how fast these companies have been built. And they're all such still young companies. But what he told me was, if the technology is not good enough, if the software is not good enough for you to understand it, the end user, if you can't figure it out yourself and it's not naturally intuitive to do what you want it to do or whatever it's meant to do, it won't last. So get over your fear of WordPress, about updating your own website. I'm going to show you real quickly how to do a hyperlink and how to publish a page. And by doing that, he removed my own fear, where it's like, well, I can get on Clubhouse. I don't know anything about Clubhouse, but I can download the app. Okay, I download the app. Here's a profile photo. Guess what? I've got a profile photo. Speaking of that, anybody listening to this podcast, get a headshot. The amount of people that it's the easiest photo to get, but a professional headshot that you're going to use that's going to stand out on Clubhouse, that'll stand out on Instagram, that'll stand out on LinkedIn. Get a professional headshot that looks who you are, who your brand is, and update it across all of those platforms. But back to your question was, if it's either easy or it's not. And it's the same thing with the software that we bring into our restaurants. I have software companies that pitch me all the time and they go, oh, let me show you what our software can do, what pain point it can solve. Let's get on a 2-hour call so we can show. I'm like, I don't have time for 2 hours. I don't have time. My general manager doesn't have time. My front of the house managers don't have time. It's either we can use it or we can't. Like you fix that, and then you come back to me and give me my login credentials and I'll tell you how good your software is.
Crazy.
Right.
I did that with that first restaurant. I spent $20,000 on one of these, all encompassing, restaurant management software packages. And 8 months in, we still weren't using it, and I scrapped the whole thing.
There you go.
It was so over the top, unusable, and the support was so bad. And again, this was 10 years ago. Things are very different now than 10 years ago. So you learn. Everything's is a lesson.
Absolutely.
And what you do with the lesson is the biggest key, right?
Yeah. So Drew, where's the best place people can follow you? What's the best digital playground if they want to interact with you?
I mean, I probably have the most play on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Max and Louie's, Diner.
Yeah, we'll put links in the show notes for anybody.
I do have
listening.
an Instagram. I'm working on being. I screwed
so I'm
up.
going to give you a quick tip.
I have like 3 of them, and I don't know how to get rid of 2 of them. So
can I give you a quick tip for your main Instagram page?
Yeah.
For content. So you have incredibly delicious food. I mean, the food jumps out of the photos, all the photos online. But this is an Instagram hack that you can use the user-generated content because you already have influencers coming to your space that are taking incredible photos of the pancakes, of all the different food items. If you go to your tagged photos in Instagram, or if you go to your location. So if you go to your location, underwards, you could click on it and that's your location. It'll show you all the photos that have been taken at your location. And the tagged photos will be anybody that's tagged you in the photos. But you're going to see all these incredible pictures of food, your menu items, and you can download the Repost app. So the Repost app for free, and pick one of those photos, repost the photo, give photo credit to whoever the influencer is. But then now you're already, the photo shoot's already been done.
So Repost is an app?
Repost is an app. Yeah, there's so many different Repost apps, but any one of them will do whatever the top rated one is, and it should be free, and it'll allow you to repost user generated content, and that'll allow you to start being on Instagram more with great photos. Not only are you getting great photos, but then you're giving a shout out to the Instagram influencer,
right?
Because you've got a significant following on Instagram as well. So now they're getting a shout out. So people are knowing who they are. They appreciate it. And then guess what? They might come back and start taking more photos for you.
We actually, the Yelp, which I used to hate.
You're not the only one.
Yeah, I've actually, I don't, we get a lot of great reviews, and there's always a clunker, because either we messed up or the guests just.
We're in a human business. We're not going to make everybody happy.
Right. So, but we get an immense amount of great reviews and pictures and all those things. And we use a game changer for us was, I signed up years ago with, it was an app called No Wait.
Sure. Oh yeah. We were one of the first restaurants in San Diego to sign up for No Wait.
And I was probably one of the first in
phenomenal.
San Antonio, and then Yelp bought it. Right? Brilliant.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. So, it was probably the smartest decision that Yelp made was acquiring No Wait. That was insane.
So I was like
incredible,
mad and whatever it is. And then of course I wasn't going to start over from scratch. So now I've embraced it and I promote the daylights out of it, everywhere. So we get a lot of traction on Yelp. Snagram, I need to do a better job. Facebook, I do. We get a lot of traction. I don't do any snapping, which I probably should. My family and friends keep telling me I should be doing some TikTok recipes or something, and there's just an endless supply of things that you can do. You got to just get out of the comfort zone and start scheduling the time to do them. And you need 5 minutes in each category a day. If you can't find it, then there's something wrong. So I got to do a better job of that.
Absolutely. Well, I do want to give a social shout out on Instagram to Pickles and Bones Barbecue. They've been listening to the podcast. Josh House, he reached out. One of his cooks, who also is going to be helping with some of their media and marketing, he came out and visited San Diego, visited a buddy, but he sent me a direct message, said he's been listening to the podcast, and was wondering if, if I'm around, if I could talk to Tom and, give him a tour of the restaurant. And I got to meet with him just the other day. So Tom, if you're listening, and Josh is going to be coming on the podcast. I love their story of what they've done in Milford, Ohio, but don't be afraid to reach out. This podcast is for you. I can't do it without you. Shout out to Stover and to Ian. Stover, the producer, Ian, who writes the articles, Toby, who helps us promote the podcast. This digital hospitality, it's not about me. This is so much bigger than me. And that's why we want to move the conversation to Clubhouse. We're going to have a weekly call on Clubhouse every Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific time. That might get a little bit adjusted when I'm in Bulgaria, but I will put links in there, and you guys know it's pretty easy to get a hold of me. Instagram's probably the easiest, Sean P. Walchef. Send me a message, let us know what you think of Drew's episode. Hopefully you got some incredible information. I also recently just launched my media coaching program. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to me. That's Sean at calibbq.media. I can tell you more about that. But as always, stay curious, get involved, and don't be afraid to ask for help. We will catch you guys next week.